and welcome to Infertility Unfiltered, where fertility experts and warriors are joining forces to provide you with tips, tricks, information, support, and inspiration so you can take back control of your life and get your baby on board. Hi, I'm Jennifer Robertson, and today we are very lucky to be joined by Dr. Sarah Jane Perry. Now, Dr. Sarah Jane is a gentle chiro and counsellor who utilizes somatic energetic practices to release stored emotions and traumas from the nervous system. She has detailed knowledge of trauma and its effects and uses various practical skills of both talk therapy and body-oriented work with clients who have trauma-related stress or anxiety symptoms. She also deals specifically with infertility trauma based on her own journey, which has included recurrent pregnancy loss, failed IVF, and now surrogacy. And today we're going to be talking about trauma and its effect on our physiology, including reproduction, and ways that we can release it. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sarah Jane.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer. I'm excited to be here and to have a chat with you about, I guess, a little bit of a different topic within infertility. Maybe not one many of your listeners or watchers of this series have heard much about, which is, trauma release and how that stores in our system, and how infertility trauma is a trauma and how it is very real within our bodies, as well as emotionally also, as I'm sure you're well aware of too.
Absolutely. Now, before we dive into trauma, do you just want to tell us just a snippet of your story and how it relates to your experience and what led you down this path?
Yeah, definitely. So I was already a chiropractor and I already was working within trauma itself, but more so for other reasons, whether it's physical or emotional reasons, anxiety, depression, mood disorders, all of those kind of things, a lot of PTSD clients. And I really found a lot of change with those people, which was amazing. But it wasn't until I went on my own journey that I realized that there was another thing called infertility trauma. That's not something that's still really hugely spoken of now, but I'm hoping to help change that. And I'm sure, like I said before, many of the people watching this can relate to what I mean when I say infertility trauma. So in terms of my own story, just like you said, it's funny when someone else says it and you're like, oh, that's right, that is my story. We had 5 recurrent miscarriages and failed IVF as well. And as a result of those losses, it changed me as a person. It just did. It changed my whole life as I knew it. Had you mentioned that to me previously, prior to experiencing this, I probably wouldn't have thought it was a thing. I would have thought that people just weren't handling it right. Maybe people were a bit highly sensitive about it. I couldn't, I'm quite a highly empathic person, so I'd hate to know what maybe some other people might be thinking. But I just thought, if you can't have children, that's your thing, or maybe that's something to accept and move on. I had no idea about what that experience would be emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, socially. I had no idea that I'd be triggered watching commercials on TV or TV shows with normal people having babies easy, or seeing a positive pregnancy test, and that's just automatically in the storyline that they're going to have a child after that. No one told me that, maybe driving past at school time, seeing all the little people getting picked up by their parents might be triggering, or especially in the case of when I was pregnant at times and went on to lose those babies, my friends who were pregnant around the same time, who now have children who are here, and how even that sometimes can be triggering in itself. But that's when I started piecing together that, hang on, this is just as much a trauma as those other traumas that I deal with, and there's no one really working within this field helping people with that.
And that's the thing. I don't think that we can rank trauma. And as you said, infertility trauma is something that we kind of push down and think, okay, well, it's not as if it was a plane crash or something like that. But really, it actually is a thing. It warrants, discussion, and it doesn't matter how big, small, whatever, whether you've had 1 miscarriage, 5 miscarriages, like it is still something that you need to walk through.
Oh, 100%. And I think it is still very much minimized in society. As I said before, I didn't quite understand it until I experienced it myself. And I think that's like many things anyway, generally. But I think that we could help educate people a little bit more in the sense of how this is a life-altering experience through all your beliefs as a child of what your life would look like one day, or especially being women, what does being a woman mean? A lot of the time it's being a mother, or even for me, going down the surrogacy route now, well, was I, is there still something wrong with me because I couldn't then carry my child? Or and miscarriages as well. Like, what was something? Why couldn't my body do it? I felt like a failure as a woman, very much so. And it took me a long time to, I guess, not associate those things with who I was, and that I was more than what they represented, and that it wasn't a failure. It's literally a trauma, and there's a difference between that. And, it was never spoken to me in regards to my specialists or psychologists I saw. It was never labelled as that. And I think, it's quite a chronic stress for a lot of people as well. Not to say that, if you have experienced, and you were fortunate enough to get pregnant after 1 IVF cycle, that wasn't trauma. We don't know what led up to that person going to IVF in the first place. Most of the time, there is a chronic stress associated with infertility, and it's that time frame, kind of like what we were just talking about before off air, in the sense of I'm in Melbourne, everyone, and we're in lockdown again for this coronavirus situation down here. It's almost, I can kind of relate it to infertility in a way, in the sense of you think you might be, it might be looking good and hopeful again, and then no, hang on, you're a step back now, and it's the situation outside of your control that's affecting your life in so many ways. And so I think for me, infertility actually helped prepare me a little bit for this kind of situation. I'm like, oh, yep, I've had to let go of things outside of my control before. I'm quite good at that now. So, yeah, that's kind of been my experience anyway.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I don't think trauma goes away either. You mentioned before, if you have a baby after you've experienced a miscarriage or something like that, it doesn't go away. Like it doesn't magically cure itself. So let's have a chat about trauma and the effect that it has on our physiological state.
Well, trauma itself is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but basically trauma just means something that has occurred to you that's overwhelmed your system. So, your cup was already somewhat full, and then something has happened, an event, lots of events, whatever it might be, has then overstimulated your system. It's been too much for your system to handle. It's, that's why you might hear people say, I feel like I'm having a breakdown, or I can't handle this, it's too much, or all those kind of words. That is a good sign that there is a trauma happening within your body, as well as, I don't look at the mind and physical separate. I look at them as one. So if there's a physical trauma, there's an emotional trauma, and vice versa. So the thing that we do as humans, though, and in our society, and currently within infertility, although I think we are getting better, is there's a lot of minimization of the trauma. There's a lot of, well, look at the brighter side, or don't give up, or keep hope and just keep going, or maybe you shouldn't keep going. There's a lot of advice and a lot of words where people aren't quite educated on how to support someone they love or know within this, situation as well. So,
and I think it's also from our point of view as well, when we're going through it, like, we don't want to feel like this. We don't want to feel the pain. So we kind of go, okay, I need to be grateful. I need to be positive, and we fight it and go, I am not going to feel the pain. I am going to distract myself by throwing myself into my job or something else, which is great, but it's not actually dealing with the trauma that's actually occurring.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the time when we are open, people give us pity or feel sorry for us, or say things like, oh, I couldn't imagine going through that. You're so strong, and things like that, which aren't necessarily bad things to say, but we don't want to be pitied. We don't want to be felt sorry for. We don't want to be in that situation. But just like, it's all consuming. Everything in your life is consuming about having a baby during that time. And that's why I think it's a trauma response as well. Like if you're going to the shops and you see something and it's not there, or if you're going to Woolworths and you can't walk down the baby aisle, or if you have baby showers with your friends and you can't go, and or you feel upset when people are announcing pregnancies who have been together 5 minutes and you've been married 10 years and trying for however long, you're kind of made to feel like you're a bad person, and you're not. It's literally, they're not jealousy feelings, they're not envious feelings, they're not poor me feelings. They're actually feelings of trauma. They're real triggers of being, of what you want so badly and what you biologically want to an extent. It's within us. I found once I got pregnant that it turned some kind of switch on to me. Prior to getting pregnant the first time, I was like, yeah, maybe one. Once I was on that roller coaster, it was like that's all I could think of. And that's also a sign of trauma, when everything else seems so small, and this is consuming your life in all ways.
Yeah. And so what are some things that we can do to release the trauma rather than storing it inside of our body? Because it is this negative energy that can sit there and it can actually make us feel sick, and it has an effect on our reproductive system and all of those things. So how can we release that trauma when it does occur and get stuck?
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting thing, because I think you and I have spoken about this prior, and when you are in that trauma state, it does have that almost the opposite effect of what you're wanting to happen as well. And that's not to say that because you've had a miscarriage and you are expecting another miscarriage and you're fearful that it's your fault that if you miscarry again. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you do hear these stories of women once they have had a child, or I don't know if anyone follows Rosanna Davison, but she had the same diagnosis that my husband and I have, which is an immune issue. She had 14 miscarriages and then just got a gestational surrogate for her beautiful baby, Sophia, and is now pregnant with twins with no medical intervention or any treatment.
That's what happened with me. I used a surrogate, and 2 weeks after he was born, I fell pregnant naturally. Yes.
I can't.
I mean, but that's yes.
Other than and that's coming from someone who's even working within releasing these traumas in this field. I think that there's a big process that happens in that instance that I can't explain easily, but there is some kind of mind-body connection there in my belief system, because I can even feel it myself going through the surrogacy route now, that I'm still triggered and at times still consumed within this. And I know that that's not necessarily assisting me in wanting to have a baby myself. But I also know once I fully let go, possibly in time, however that might be, that might be beneficial for me. Now, is that to say that's everyone's story? No, but it's just to prove that there is a kind of a link here psychologically as well. So in terms of what we can do to at least help ourselves feel a little bit better day to day, not necessarily to go on and have a baby and if I just let it go mentally, I'll get there. That's not what I'm trying to say, because it's much more of a process than that I can't teach. But what I can't even do it myself yet, just to reiterate if anyone else out there is thinking the same thing. But there are things that we can do so that our daily triggers or interactions with people or places or media, social media as well, aren't as stingy, aren't as, that feeling you get when you're triggered, to make it feel like it's a little bit more manageable. So one of the things that humans don't do that most other animals do in the world is that when they come up against something that is traumatizing or something that's not been a great experience for them, create a lot of fear or whatever, they actually shake it off physically. And you can see this, even if you were to walk your dog and they got in a little argument with another dog down the street, you'll see them kind of shake it off. And then 5 minutes later, they're happy as Larry again. They're not worrying about that other dog. However, memories do store. And, maybe next time they walk past another dog, maybe that dog's a little bit more hesitant, but they're still happy to go on the walk, still able to enjoy things, So it's about releasing that in the actual physical and the physiology of the system. So I actually teach people to shake it off, literally, in their system. So
Taylor Swift does have it right.
Yeah, she does. there's something called trauma release exercises, which are basically little movements you do with your legs to initiate this response. It's not you shaking it off. It's literally your body, its intelligence doing it for you. And you can feel it. And so if anyone's wanting to Google TRE or trauma release exercises, they will show you how to do that from home. And it's very easy and very simple. And it just initiates that response to let out that energy or that build up of stress from the physical. You know, and it's very, you know, I don't know if you've ever been in like a little car accident or something, you shake like this, or even a confrontation. Your body does do it at times, but in infertility, you may not find that you're doing that on a basis to help yourself.
Mm-hmm. And is that why, you know, running or doing something, you know, vigorous exercise and just moving your body can really help perhaps release as well? Like, for me, running is a great way if I'm stressed or, you know, holding on to something, you go for a run and you feel a lot better when you come back.
Yeah, well, running could be something that, you know, we would do in the wild. If there was a giant bear, we would try to run away from it. We'd either fight it or run away. So sometimes running is good in the sense that our body wants to do that, to let off that energy, let off that steam, so to speak. But it's not specifically trauma releasing as such. But it can bring a lot of, you know, all that build up, release it in a different way. Maybe not specifically trauma. I don't know. There might need to be a bit more research on how exercise can do that generally. But everyone's a bit different. So some people, you know, they'll go to the gym, but, you know, with their adrenals fatigued or their cortisol all in their system from being stressed a lot, those kind of really intense workouts, like a F45 or something maybe, that can actually keep the stress response going, even though it kind of feels good. So sometimes the more slowing down ones are better, like a yoga, you know, or even Pilates, reformer Pilates or mat Pilates, more the slowing down, even just walking, swimming, that can really be of benefit for the body. It creates a safety for it.
Mm-hmm. Any other techniques that they can use to release trauma?
Look, you may want to see someone who can help you with that, because like anything, you know, like we all see our fertility specialists or naturopaths or acupuncturists, whatever it might be, it is nice to have someone help facilitate that with you, especially because at times when we do work with the body somatically, it may bring up memories, it may bring up hard times, it may bring up emotions, it may bring up lots of things for that person. And because it, you know, as we were just talking about it, it is a real thing. It can be nicer to have someone help facilitate that with you. So either a somatic practitioner, someone who, you can even just Google, you know, help with trauma practitioners or whatever, and someone will come up hopefully within your area to help with that. But trauma release exercises is something that's just a small thing to do that you can do yourself.
Perfect. So trauma release exercises, seeing someone who you're able to talk to about it, like the talk therapy and everything to really sit in it. And also I think one of the big things is that acknowledging that, yes, this is trauma and you know, it is completely valid.
Oh, 100%. And even with the talk therapy, you know, I think most of us, you know, who have gone through this, well, I think a lot of us have either seen a psychologist or a counsellor to help us with that, but it doesn't release the physical build-up. So if you can find someone who does both talk therapy and release of the physical build-up, then you're going to notice a little bit more of a change, I think. Talk therapy is very beneficial, but you need to have that connection with someone, and that's not always simple to do. And also what can happen when you are talking about, you know, these experiences that have been traumatic, you can actually go back into this state of trauma again. So you can get all those same physiological responses. You know, you're sweating, you're feeling anxious, you feel funny through your chest. You know, it's your body doesn't know the difference, and your mind doesn't know the difference of something that happened 10 years ago or when you're talking about it presently now. So that's something to be aware of. But there's a great book, if anyone's more interested in trauma as a whole, and you can just relate it to infertility, because there's not much out there in terms of infertility specifically yet. And it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks very specifically about traumas in life and how it stores in our system. And he's got a few things in there and some tips as well. But basically yoga, biofeedback, which is retraining the brain how to respond after it's experienced so many stressful events. It's not too popular here in Australia yet, and also trauma release and somatic work.
Perfect. Excellent. Some fantastic tips there. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sarah Jane Perry.
Thanks for having me.
Now, if you like this video and interview as much as I did, please make sure that you give it a little love, give it a like, share it, and make sure you subscribe to this channel as well, because this is just one of many amazing interviews as part of the Infertility Unfiltered series. So thanks for watching.